I don't care how cool your spreadsheets are, how dead on your projections are. If you don't have a relationship with your client, like, what are you doing? I'm a hugger and I hug all my clients.
Hey Sam, awesome to have you here. I'm really excited because just as we alluded to a second before we start recording, we bumped into each other at an event earlier this year. February, was that February?
It's in February, Miami.
Yes, and that's gone so quickly since we're recording this now in September. Crazy. And you were up on stage. And it was really memorable to me because you got thrown up on stage. You didn't really know that you were doing that piece of the event. What I really enjoyed was the energy that you took to it because you didn't have that prepared piece to talk about, but you came across like super sharp, and I just enjoyed the levity and comedy you brought to it. Just it made it much more memorable and impactful. So it was just kind of interesting to start. I'd love if you would share a little bit about how you got started in the business and like what is your focus and how you support the clients, your clients.
Sure. So I specialize in, I tell people, life insurance and financial planning for law enforcement officers and their families, very specific. But how I got started in the business, so my father, Mark Meredith, he was an advisor with Mutual of New York since 1979. And I never knew a lot about what my dad did growing up. He would tell us kind of little stories here and there about work, but I didn't really understand exactly what business he was in. But I took note of things like the fact that my mom stopped working when I was 6. We never went without, went to great schools. We had all the luxuries that every kid would want growing up. And my dad was also home at 2 o'clock every day, which was awesome. And my dad also loved his job. He would always come home with good, happy stories. He was always in a good mood. And I thought that's enough for me. My dad and I like to say that we're twins, except for I have hair and he doesn't. And he loves or loved his career while he did it. And I thought, shoot, here's a career that I could have for myself where I could make as much money as I wanted. I could make my own schedule. I could enjoy it. That was enough for me. So I just went straight through. I went to Cal State Long Beach, got my business degree there, went straight into my master's, got my MBA, and then showed up at work. I got my 7 and 66 right after getting my MBA and was like, I'm here, Dad. What do we do? So that's kind of how I jumped into it. He never really even asked me to come into the business with him. I was just like, nope, I'm going to do this.
I love the family stories. I actually had an advisor this week tell me he just had a newborn son, a 6-month old son. He's just starting to produce a group. Him and his son have got the same initials. The DBA is their initials. He said, I'm setting up so he can, in 18 years, he's going to come back into the business with me. Gave me chills, Sam, just hearing him say that in that moment. I thought it was really cool. It sounds like your dad had it like really figured out at that point. Being home at 2 o'clock, like he'd really not just, because there's so many advisors, planners that are in a spot where they have a good practice, but not necessarily a good business. And it's even more frequent, I'd say, that have a good business, but don't necessarily have that right flow between family life. And it sounds like he really was able to hit both of those.
Since probably the early 90s, my dad had work life balance down. He was driven, but he also, family was just as important to him as success at work. So, to my dad, being successful meant being able to provide for the family, put away some for retirement, but also to be involved. He was our little league coach. He was at all my track meets. He was always there and always present for us. And that was a successful career in life for my dad. So, I've followed in those footsteps as well.
I'm always digging around for mindsets and perspectives, belief. I guess there's an overlap of all those things. And it sounds like your dad was a big anchor in those things for you, at least in those early stages. And so if you could put your finger on one thing, mindset wise, that took you forward from that point, what would you say that is? And perhaps you still leverage that now as well.
Just to keep the big picture in focus, just not to get too upset or excited over one little thing. There's a lot of moving pieces, whether it's in life, whether it's in business, and just take it all in with a grain of salt. I think, especially as a younger advisor, it's easier to get really excited about something or really upset about something. And my dad just always tried to teach, keep it even. Yes, you want to celebrate the wins, but there's also going to be some losses, and to just even out the flow a little bit so that you have the staying power that you need in our business. That was a really good mindset that dad helped try to instill in me sooner than I was ready for it, to be honest. I'm closer now. 20 years ago, it was rough. It's hard. The first couple years in our business are difficult. There's a lot of highs and lows. Just trying to keep that mindset has been helpful.
Awesome. Seven Figure Advisor podcast is for all advisors. And so it's great to hear that because if you're listening to it's the first couple of years in the business or you're in a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, there's always something to take, right? Because those lessons seem to repeat, but just mean different things at different stages. I love that because it feels to me like a stock market graph, right? The closer you're in, you're looking at it on a daily basis, is volatile. The more you zoom out, the more it just looks like a straight line. And like you said, the word flow, which is what I normally say. But I talked to an advisor this morning out of New York for the first time, and he said, used the word glide. He said, I want to glide. I was like, oh, that's great. I like glide. That's really cool. Tell us about some moments, Sam, that were breakthrough for you in your journey that really started to make some shifts as you continue to grow as an advisor. What would you say?
Yeah, probably the biggest and most meaningful shift, which is about mindset too for me, was I incorrectly assumed that my clients knew and understood all of the services that I could provide for them. That was not true. So, because I work with a lot of police unions, and the largest thing I do for them is on the insurance side, mostly life insurance planning, disability insurance, things like that. I kind of got labeled the life insurance lady, which, is cute. I'm a financial advisor and I can do a lot more than just one or two tricks. And it hit me, Nick, when my clients would call me and start telling me, oh, my financial advisor said this, or my financial advisor wants me to ask you that. And I would sit there and be like, that's what I do for a living. Literally, Nick would be like, no, I didn't know that at all. And so it really smacked me over the head. I need to spell it out for my clients from the get go, all of the services that I can do for them. And especially when you work with clients like law enforcement officers, they do want to have an expert, a person to be their everything, which, as I tell them all the time, I can't do your taxes. I can't do your wills and trusts. No, I'm not going to take the blood during your insurance exam. I don't do any of that. But when it comes to insurance and investments, I can cover you for the most part. Just being upfront, even if I'm just making a term life insurance sale to a 24-year-old client that may not need in depth financial planning for many years down the road, I still set the stage early so that they remember me and they think of me when they go through those things in life. And that's been huge because it's brought, I hardly ever need to go after, and not that I ever do, go after new clients, Nick, because my clients are now coming back to me for more services and more needs, and what we would call cross selling, doing more lines of business with the same clients. So just the fact that I'm opening up more about it, I'm getting more referrals for the types of business that I would like to be doing. And that was a huge shift for me.
It was just them asking you about, hey, oh, my advisor asked me to do this. And so is there a,
I would get jealous. I'm like, you're what?
yeah,
You're
that's me,
you're
it's
who?
supposed to be me.
Excuse me, but they literally were like, I thought you just sold life insurance, Sam, and that's my bad.
The deeper mindset I see around this oftentimes is we forget as experts, forget how much. And I've had it before. I've got one advisor in mind that I've been working with for a long time, and he's been in the game for 3 decades. And he said to me not too long ago, it's like this new referral come up, and I was like, do you think I should tell them all the things that we do? I'm like, yes, absolutely, because there's an assumption that I've been doing this so long now that those things are just like super low level. Everyone knows that. Right? Everyone knows that. It's even if it's the obvious, it's restating the obvious, even if they do know what it is, that creates the right frame for the value that you can put into there. And as you suggest, then you open up doors that you perhaps wouldn't have even opened before. That's really cool.
100%. Yes.
How long ago was that? Contextually, like how much of a lift did that give your business? I don't know how recent that might have been. Could have been a long time ago, but tell us about
It wasn't that long ago. So this is next April, I'll hit 20 years in the business. So I'd say I probably went about the first 10 years without ever bringing it up. And then, you get more confident with your other skills, because I was always confident with the life insurance and the disability insurance from the start, because my dad was a big employee benefits type of producer, not so much on the AUM, which we'll get into later. But I started doing more lines of business, more joint work, getting more confident. And then that's when I would start getting mad that, what do you mean you have a financial advisor? So I honestly, Nick, it probably took me 10 or 15 years to get better at this, and I'm still perfecting it, because a lot of times it's tough to transition the conversation, because clients will come to me specifically, maybe, hey, I just need life insurance, that's what I'm here for, but I still need to find a nice way to bring it up. So a lot of times when I'm doing a client profile or even doing an application and we're talking about their assets, and especially if they already have assets, I just lightly bring up, hey, if you ever need somebody to take a look at your accounts as a financial advisor, I'm also able to help you with those things. So I just kind of lightly just put it out there. So I'm still perfecting it, but honestly, the first 10 to 15 years, I was not good at that.
Thank you for your honesty. And it's always a process, right? Because another thing I often see is that when advisors first start out, they really lean on the process of, okay, get the training, do ABC, and you get XYZ, and it makes sense. And then what tends to happen is they start to get momentum, get some success, and then drop some of the things that actually got them to that place because they know it, quote unquote, right? They know it. I got it, like it's in them. They can do it. They can wing it, and that's great. That is the next level up. But what I find is then we can bring back some of those relatively rudimentary tools, but now use them at a different level to get us like a different result. It's like the champion boxer, right? Wins the championship, goes back to the gym, and the first thing to do is throw his jabs. Like, they know how
A
to throw a
1-2
jab,
punch.
but like you go back to just practice it, but at a different level as well. Is there a tool that you could share that you institute? I mean, you talked about like changing the way that you frame it, but is there a tool that you find that you use that works really well for you that you don't see many other advisors using?
The only thing I can really think of on that, Nick, is especially in the life insurance planning world, I always feel that it's so important to show clients their options. And with life insurance, because it's not tangible, I'm a visual person. So I had a problem with that at first. So I would create note sheets just to show to clients when I would meet with them in person. And now when we do virtually, I can share my screen. But just it's one thing to say, okay, let's explain term insurance versus permanent. And here's all the great things about universal life versus variable. But when it comes down to it, clients want to see the costs. So I'll create little note sheets that just have color coded, hey, here's what term insurance costs on you, here's what universal, here's what variable. And depending on how the conversation goes, they may know where they're zeroing in on. But just having just a cute little color coded summary, just showing pricing differences, giving them something to look at and touch and compare side by side, I think it makes them feel like they're more in charge of what really is their decision. But I think they feel like they have a little more to work with. And I think they feel more confident about the decision that they make when they're purchasing an insurance product just by seeing something on paper. And I don't know, I like to color code and make it stand out. And I just feel like it's been a nice experience. It makes life insurance planning more fun, more colorful. So that's one thing that I do use that I've always used it and I love that.
I love that. I think that's beautiful because it's not like you can't explain it. You know how to explain it, but having that way of like showing people just to get that extra level in. I was working with a client last week and we talked about agendas and we talked about asking for introductions, asking for referrals, which I'd love to ask you about a bit later. And he said, like, yeah, I used to have an agenda, but I just don't anymore. And I said, look, I think we could just do one in 5 minutes. We just 5 minutes, put like a little agenda through, and he's just going to go back to taking this 5 or 6 things on his agenda and just making it part of it. And one of those things will be his introductions on there. But just using a tool that he used when he first started out, they just dropped because he figured it out, but then go back to it at a high level, which is really cool. I'd love to go back to your focus, law enforcement. And what I found is that it's not often that I get an advisor which has the specific focus that you have, not law enforcement per se, but even just a specific area as well. Tell us a little bit about your team setup, if you would. How does that work for you? How do you get the support? How do you share some of that responsibility when you're delivering to your clients?
Yes, no, one of the best things that I've done in my practice last 20 years is I joined a firm, which at Equitable we call a producer group, and they complement me perfectly. I am the expert when it comes to the insurance side of the equation that we've talked about, even annuities, because just any kind of protection product, I'm pretty equipped to handle on my own. But when it comes to the assets under management side, it's just, as I alluded to earlier, it's just nothing that my dad really got into deeply, even though we both had a securities license and this and that. It just wasn't a big scenario that we would deal with, people that needed managed money. I joined a firm where my three partners, their expertise is AUM and managed money. And they were looking for, when I joined the firm, an expert on the insurance side. So it's the perfect situation where when I have clients now that are retired and want managed money, I've got my partners that I trust 100% that really help me put them in the right portfolio. They help me with the research. They'll obviously even talk to my clients. I'm getting more comfortable now, but I've got a whole support system of people that I trust implicitly to help me with that kind of business. And then when the firm's clients need an insurance expert to look at their policy, see if we can put them in a better position or just get them into a new insurance policy, they've got me to help them with that. So leveraging each other for expertise is huge because I'm a big believer that you can't do everything yourself. You're not going to be an expert in everything. So you got to pick what you love, what you're passionate about. And for me, it's the protection product. Sometimes I'll even tell people I'm a protection planner. I just love protection. I'm a mom. I want to protect everybody. It's just what I do. I want to make my clients a lot of money too. Don't get me wrong, but I can't be both. So by partnering with a firm that really supports that side of the business, it's been huge for me because I really do feel that I confidently can now do everything to the top notch level for my clients between myself and my partners.
No matter how good you might be in a particular area, even if you think of yourself as great in multiple areas, adding high level people to you can only make things better, can only add more value
Yeah,
to your clients, can only
100%.
create more opportunity, which is more overall. Tell us some of the struggles you're seeing right now, perhaps something that you're feeling for yourself or in the producer group or even just generally in the industry.
I mean, the only struggles I've seen recently, especially with my clients, is just the uncertainty of the market and the politics. So a lot of people are scared. A lot of people are understand that we're in a good place right now. They're worried. So thank goodness I'm part of this group that really stays up to date on what's going on politically and in the market, just to better assure our clients that we've got you in the right position based on your timeline, your risk tolerance, all things like that. So that's it's really been the only negative thing I've seen lately is that a lot of people are worried about a lot of things, and some of them have to do with finance and some of them don't. But as their financial advisor, in some ways, we're therapists in some ways too, because we need to listen to all these things that because money can be so emotional. It does all tie together in the big picture. One thing I'm feel that I'm one of my strong points is I'm a good listener. So really listening to what my clients what their concerns are, whether or not they're money or insurance related, just because just listening and giving a little bit of feedback just helps them feel better about their situation and where they're investing and moving going forward.
Makes me really think about how being technically astute, appropriately accoladed, and being able to provide the right information prerequisite to success. But being able to think about the psychology and what people need and relationships, for me at least, that's what allows advisors to really grow fantastic businesses and add tons of value. Do you see that the same way as well? What would you say about that?
We are in the relationship business. I don't care how cool your spreadsheets are, how dead on your projections are. If you don't have a relationship with your client, like, what are you doing? I'm a hugger and I hug all my clients. And we're talking like first meeting. Okay, they want to shake hands at first, that's fine. But an hour later, we'd be hugging. I've become friends with many of my clients, and you have to have a good relationship with your clients because they're going to depend on you for a lot of advice in a lot of touchy subject matters.
Talk about referrals or favorable introductions, as I like to call them. And you alluded to a little bit earlier that because of the way you set up your business in that niche, a lot of it comes to you. But I find that referrals is always something, a subject which is a little bit polarizing for advisors, right? People really lean into it, so people really lean out to it. There's obviously a lot of stuff in the middle, but how do you think about your approach to referrals and setting it up for clients? Constant value equation there.
My answer is probably not going to be one we want to tell too many people, Nick, but I will tell you. I learned very quickly in the business when I had a manager and they're teaching you exactly what you talk about. Have an agenda at the end, bring up introductions, how if you found this helpful, is there anyone that you know that maybe I could have a help the same kind of meaningful conversation with? That don't work for law enforcement officers. And you know why? Because they're private, confidential people, as they should be. And the last thing they're going to do is write me 5 names of their buddies with phone numbers and say, tell them I told you to call. That's not going to happen. So, in my niche market, it's more of just being super upfront, like I said earlier, about all the things that I can do. And as I do things with them and do reviews, and they see their assets growing, and they see, God forbid, when we do have to pay death claims, they see the impact of the work. I get referrals all the time, weekly, daily, all the time. And I don't ask for them. So just by having that close relationship and being the person in this community, it took a while. Trust me, I used to get so jealous. My dad's phone would ring all the time, and I'm like, come on, phone, ring. Somebody call me. And they would call him all the time. Hey, someone, my partner told me to call. My cousin told me to call. And I'm there now. Thank God I have an assistant that answers my phone at this point and it's wonderful, but it took a while to get there. So just by doing a good job, having a close relationship, reminding clients through reviews of what I do for them, they naturally will refer you. It's taken me a while to get to this point, but now we're good. But yeah, at first I was never the winner of any referral campaigns back in the day or anything like that. And it's just for my market, that's just how I'm comfortable.
Wow. So what I'm taking for that is, man, know your market and the power of niching to that specificity because, as you said, you're adding enough value to a smaller population. It's naturally going to people going to talk about it, right? Versus if you're not really focused in, it's really hard for people to refer you because they don't know who they're going to talk about. If you don't know who it is, they're much less likely to know what it is, and that will happen in a different way. So that's fascinating to hear. If you were to look back, I mean, you just said you're coming up to 20 years. Based on what you've shared, what advice would you either give to yourself at that 10-year mark or to someone who's in about 10 years right now? And obviously, it's relative, like where you might be on the journey, but what would be something that will be a lesson that you might give back?
Two different things. The first 10 years, I wish I could go back and give myself a little glimpse into the life I have now, where I'm at business and personally and professionally, the success and the life that I've built around this career. Because it's the same advice I give to new parents, Nick, when you're a newer advisor. The days are long, but the years are short. And it may seem, oh my gosh, I remember going into a conference room and shutting the door and crying when I was a new advisor, or putting my head on my desk because you get so frustrated. They teach you, oh, you got to deal with rejection. That's not easy. It's not easy. It's not, oh, okay, yep, okay, another no is another step closer to a yes. That's just not easy. So there was a lot of frustrating times. So I think just if I could tell myself, hey, look, just hang in there, it's going to all be worth it in the long run. This is what you can expect. And here's how great I am 20 years later and I shouldn't say great, I'm still a work in progress. Don't get me wrong, as we've discussed, but the life I can live now with the income and the flexibility that I have based on the business that I've built and the couple thousand clients that I have, it's so worth it. It was so worth all the blood, sweat, and tears to get here. And I'm just getting started. Honestly, if we talk in another 10 years or so, I'm going to be like, oh, I wish I could have told my 43-year-old self this, because like I said, I still got a long way to go, but I can see the benefits. I can see the light. I can see, shoot, I'm halfway through my career. That's so weird. So it's like I want to keep it going as much as I can to get to those next levels because retirement's going to be here before I know it. So that would probably be the biggest thing I'd want to tell myself in those earlier years is just stay the course. It's going to all be worth it.
It's such good advice. And it's like one of those things where you hear it and you hear it again. It's like you can't hear that enough. You can't hear that enough because there's just that one thing that kind of gets you going, keeps you going, keep playing the game. And like you said, you're just really starting to hit the upswing of the compound interest. And as you said, work in progress. Join the club, right? The club of humanity. There's always more. There's always more we can do. But thank you for being the example and sharing that, Sam. Because like I'm sure there's lots of people that need to hear that right now, right? Whether they've been in the game as long as you have, or is that 10 years, or even further on. It's like you always need to be reminded to stay in the game. I certainly find that's true as well. On that note, what might be a habit or something that you do regularly, if you think of it differently, daily, small things that keep you going, that really serve you well?
I plan everything. I'm a planner. I mean, that's what I do for a living. It's my calendar. I was one of those people, my husband would make so much fun of me. I was like, I don't need a smartphone. I don't need it. Oh my gosh, I would die without my online Outlook calendar nowadays. Nick, it was so embarrassing that I would go to meetings or conference out of state in case a client called to set a meeting. I would pull up my phone and they would think I was doing my online, putting them in the calendar. But no, I had the book, the calendar book, and I had taken pictures of my schedule and put them on my phone to see when I was available to meet with clients. Cause I don't know, I'm just a little old school. But nowadays, let me tell you, my Outlook calendar is fan freaking tastic. Everything's color coded. I have two daughters that are redheads. So if it's a kid event, it's orange. So I see that there. If it's a me event, it's purple. If it's a client event or an in person meeting, it's dark blue. So I color code everything, schedule everything. But one thing I found that I really had to do to keep re-energizing myself is without fail, at least 2 to 3 times a week, I work out with my trainer. I was a college athlete at Long Beach State. I was a hammer and discus thrower, and I'm very competitive. And I need that physical outlet. So being able to, no matter what kind of day it was, work wise, kid wise, I get out there and for an hour, it's just me and my trainer, and we're lifting hard and we're talking, and I just need that to reset. So for me, that has been a huge help because for the first, honestly, man, the first 8 years or so of being a parent, I didn't really have any me time scheduled at all. I'll put in there every few weeks to get my nails done. And that's a nice little relaxing outlet. And then those couple times a week, that physical outlet for working out. I really do need that to center myself and be ready to have the energy to keep pushing and keep growing.
It's such a huge theme pattern for successful people, knowing that you've got to find the time to look after yourself. There's always a balance where that changes through the arc of our lives, but that's so important because you can't give stuff you don't have. First things first, you've got to re energize that back. That's so cool. Sam, What a pleasure. Thanks for being on the Seven Figure Advisor podcast. What might you leave everyone with? Any last parting words you'd like to share? Any other pieces of advice or asks of the audience?
If you're listening to this, you're in our business, and what a great business to be in. There's a gentleman at our company who does weekly reminders of the good that we do for our clients, and he always ends his saying by saying, "Be proud of what you do." I think, especially when you're a new advisor, you don't realize the good that you're doing. You're not just growing somebody's portfolio by 1 or 2% more, especially when you're helping them with their insurance and other types of planning. We really do help people with some of the most important things in life, protecting them and their family financially. And the more death claims you deliver, you see that effect, you see that purpose, you feel it, you cry with your clients, and you know how important it is what we do. So just yes, this can be a lucrative business. You can make as much money as you want, or you can make decent money and work as little as you want. You can kind of make it what you want to make it, but it's just so worth it. I'm so glad that I chose it as a career. There's nothing else that I would rather be doing. And I love helping people. I love that great feeling when you can tell they appreciate you and I make twice as much as my husband. So, and guess
uh,
what? He loves that. He
yeah, right.
does.
That's fantastic.
So, I love it. I love it. And I'm at every basketball practice for my daughter and at Girl Scout meetings. And I'm living the life that I've always wanted, successful financially, but 100% there for my family. And I'm very happy and proud of the work that I do with my clients. And I just hope that the advisors that listen to this call can take something away that helps them better their situation, whether it's personal time or grow business wise.
I don't doubt that at all. Loads and loads of gold. Great stuff that you shared today, Sam. And I really appreciate your openness and your approach, and a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on. Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Nick. Always.